think I'm going to kick things off.
Okay, great.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Alumni Marketing Update with our marketing team coming at you live from Olin, and me and Chris here at Facebook HQ. Thanks, everyone, for bearing with us through some technical difficulties as we got things set up. I hope everyone found the new YouTube channel instead of the old YouTube channel. Next time, we'll do a type rehearsal. Great. So the format that we're going to use for tonight is Michelle and the marketing team have about a 20-minute PowerPoint presentation that they're going to walk us through. While they're doing that, they're going to address some of the questions that we got earlier on the Facebook poll in the alumni group. And then after their presentation, we're going to take questions from the audience on either the Olin Alumni Slack, which you can find information about how to join on olinalumni.org, or we'll also take questions from the Facebook event. Great. So I'm going to pass it over to you guys. You can screen share. I'm going to leave my
Okay, terrific. Thanks so much to Chris and to Greg for suggesting that we do this in the first place. And so we're kind of the three marketeers here. If you don't know us, my name is Michelle Davis. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer. I've been here now for about 3 years, and I'll turn over to Alyson to introduce herself.
I'm Alyson Goodrow, and I'm the Director of Marketing. And I've been here since 2006, so just after the first class graduated, and it's been kind of a wild ride and so much fun.
And Alyson, by the way, just got a promotion not too long ago to Director of Marketing, so good for her.
Okay. And I'm Sarah Pickering. I'm the Marketing Coordinator, and I've been here just about 2 years. And I work with Alyson 3 years? 3 years. And I work with Alyson a lot on social media and the website.
So we actually did rehearse all of this a couple times before. I think we over-rehearsed and overthought it. So again, sorry for the technical difficulties, but part of the reason that I'm doing this and I'm interested in doing, kind of a webinar, Google On Air chat is because we'd like to do this more often with you, and not just the marketing folks, but people like Jessica Townsend and Mark Somerville and Jeff Goldenson, our new library director, all have great information they'd like to communicate, and we think this might be a super way for them to connect with you. So after the fact, we very much like your feedback about whether this format worked for you or not. We're going to be looking at Google On Air, but we'll also be looking at things like GoToMeeting, WebEx, and I think it's Adobe Connect too. So anyway, your feedback would be very helpful around that. So again, thanks to the Mara brothers for suggesting this. Just some technical housekeeping. You probably know this better than I do, given that we kind of didn't get off to a good start around this. But you should be joining by YouTube, and I'm not sure, I guess you may not be able to ask questions now, but it's possible if you can ask questions that you hit be part of the conversation and you can ask those questions. And I know there are back channels that you're using. I'm going to share a couple of PowerPoints with you. There is somewhere between a 10-second and a 30-second delay, so sometimes it's a little bit hard for me to know where you might be at in terms of looking at the PowerPoint. So just be aware that there is a delay. And my goal is to keep my comments short so that we have time for Q&As. If you are having problems, I suggest you either write to Greg or Chris, or you can write to Sarah Pickering at olin.edu. So it's Pickering and Sarah with an H on it. I thought I'd start off by just addressing the questions that you sent to me in advance. There were 5 questions, and they were excellent questions, and I think they actually get to the bulk of my presentation. So I'm going to go on to a screen share right now. It's probably get, whoops, that's not it. It's going to take a second. Hold on 1 second. Okay, there we go. Okay, so the first question that was asked is, what are the top level goals for the marketing team? And one of the points I wanted to make to you.
So I'm going to stop your screen share.
It's not working?
No.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, let me try that again.
Don't close it.
Don't close, okay.
Cancel.
Okay.
But just minimize that a second.
Okay.
When you click share, you should get a thing that pops up across the window, and then just click the window and click share.
Now let me try that again. Share. Okay, this may work now.
That's working.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome.
Keep giving us instructions there. So For most marketing, well, first of all, there aren't necessarily a lot of chief marketing officers in higher education. That's just a new development. But for those that are coming in, or those folks that have marketing responsibilities, they're generally very focused on admissions. And in fact, that is the case for us, but a little less so than other organizations that are, and other colleges that are really striving to get the number of applicants up. But Olin, I don't know if you know this, but we now become one of the top 10 most selective colleges for admissions. So we're not, and we're a small college, and we're not having problems getting the numbers to us. What we are very interested in is getting underrepresented minorities into engineering. So, you know, African Americans, Latinos, you know, women, we're particularly interested in. So we'll do marketing that generally supports the program, and then we're going to be working with the new Dean of Admissions, Emily Roper-Doughton, to also specifically think how to recruit those underrepresented minorities. So that is a focus, but really for us, the prime focus is a little bit different than most.
One quick interjection. Can you start the presentation so that the slides fill more of your screen?
Sure. Yeah. Does that look like what it was doing?
It's right to the left, down into the left of the.
Right here?
That one.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Great, that works perfect.
Is that better? Okay. So, so what we do focus on are sort of what is the next form of support going to be for Olin? So where are the donors out there that want to really push Olin to the next level of our mission? So we all know, I think Olin's been very successful in terms of functioning as a national laboratory for innovation and engineering education. And we're doing that very successfully. But if we don't achieve the second part of the mission, which is to advance education across the United States and across the world, then we really haven't fulfilled our full mission. And to do that, we need more resources than we received in our original FW Olin donation that was given to us when they cashed out their foundation, and from all the other fees that we collect. So it's really about finding potential donors who are interested in our broader mission of transforming engineering education. And we focus a lot of time and effort thinking about that group, and that's different than most colleges. So I just put in front of you the way that we like to think about this, which is a conversion funnel and strategy for marketing. And so part of it's just building flat out awareness for Olin. I mean, Olin has increased its awareness significantly, you know, over the past 12 years since we've been open. We weren't even on US News and World Report, and now we're number 3 on US News and World Report in terms of ranking. So that's an incredible amount of awareness that have been built in a short period of time, but there's still a lot of people that haven't heard about us. So we're doing things like NPR and a Nautilus sponsorship, which I'm going to say a few words about, media outreach, thought leadership events. In terms of getting people interested, the next step, the website, which Alyson and Sarah were very involved in launching. There's a new thing that we're focusing on called inbound marketing in the wire, and I'm going to talk about that. So I'm not going to read down the rest of this, but this generally gives you the idea of what our strategy is in terms of who we're trying to reach and how we're trying to reach those individuals. So you asked, how do we measure this? And so I come from healthcare, and in healthcare we have what are called outcome measures, which is how are you actually impacting the outcome, versus process measures, which are sort of what are the measures around your process that you can report. Outcome measures in marketing might be something like, what's the level or increase in the awareness? What's the change in attitude that people have about you? A process measure might be, how many more visits are you having to your website? How long are they staying on your website? What's the increase in your earned media publicity? You know, unfortunately, we've tried to think about how we can get outcome measures, because those are very valuable to us. But when you think about doing those kinds of surveys, at least in the traditional way that I was trained to do them, it can be, and because we're trying to reach very wealthy donors, and they're very difficult to reach and very expensive to reach, it could be $100,000, and that's, you know, a third of my budget at least. So we don't really have good outcome measures right now, but we have a lot of process measures. So I'm sharing one process measure with you right here. We look at our earned media, that's our publicity. And I don't know if you know, but we have Anne Marie and Joe Hunter, who are really engaged in increasing the amount of coverage, and I do that too. We all do a little bit of that. And you can see that we've had a significant increase over the past 6 months. Because this data takes a while to collect and tabulate, and we don't have a lot of us, which we did the first 6 months to compare. And so you see a pretty significant increase there of 157%. And then we kind of made up our own measure. Chris told me he loves coming up with his own interesting, crude measures because, you know, what better do you have to work with if you don't have any measures? It's better to come up with something. This looks at, you know, what's the paper that we're in? Is it the New York Times versus the Needham Times? What's the value of that? Are we above the fold? Are we mentioned prominently? And we came up with our own kind of index. And that's risen by 6. So the quality, that not only the amount of coverage has increased, but the quality of that coverage has increased. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second and have Alyson say, get rid of this. Alyson's going to say a little bit about how we look at what we've looked at in terms of our web analytics.
Yeah, so that's kind of a good segue because I was just telling Michelle that the increase in media coverage, we definitely feel the attention that gets us on the website. Essentially, we launched the new website in March of 2014. And when I'm looking at the data and a year-over-year growth, I'm comparing basically the fiscal year 14, which is the academic year, is the academic year of partial 2013, 2014 to the academic year, the following academic year, which is 14, 15. And we saw a growth of about almost 14% after launching the website. Year-over-year growth has been about 14%. That takes us up until about June 30th of this year. So we kicked off a new quarter, July 1, and already we're seeing an over 20% increase in traffic to the site as compared to Q1 2015. So of course, there's no way to directly connect the media coverage to the website hits, but we know that we appeared on the Today Show in August around our Princeton Review rankings of #1 best classroom experience, and we saw a huge uptick in web traffic around that. And we also have been getting a whole bunch of coverage around the firefighting drones that are being worked on out of the robotics lab, and the U.S. News and World Report news, and then also the launch of The Wire, which Michelle alluded to earlier. So Sarah and I keep, this giant spreadsheet of web sessions and time on site, and measuring all of our social media stuff also. It's an area that I feel like we could dig into if we had more time and certainly more expertise, but so far so good. Things are all kind of on an upward trajectory. So in terms of supporting our goal of building brand awareness, we feel like we've been pretty successful.
So Craig, I'm not sure, are we on right now, or are we sharing my screen?
We're on right now.
We're on right now. Okay.
Not started sharing again.
I'm just trying to think. Can we go back to the screen?
You need to click the green arrow on the Hangout again and share it again.
Okay. Kind of weird. Let's see.
see.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
I think if you go over this.
Yeah. Okay. 1 second here. Oh, here we go again.
Now you can click on just alumni presentation.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I just wanted to say a couple of things. So just a couple things we're doing. And we got it now?
Big again.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Should have someone else driving clearly here. So just one thing, we do an NPR buy, and I just want to let the group know, we used to do Here and Now, which was kind of a 12 noon show. It's syndicated across the country. I don't know if there are many NPR listeners here, but we are now, we haven't increased the buy, but we split the buy so that we're now also on Tom Ashbrook, who is also syndicated nationally. And, I think has a very much appeals to the well-to-do donors that we're interested in attracting, and has a very kind of erudite intellectual approach to his program. I wish he would cover Olin. We've been working with him, trying to pitch him over and over again, but I guess there's a serious split between advertising and editorial there. We're also looking at a Nautilus partnership. Actually, this is how this conversation started, because I sent this out and I think Greg said, "What is this?" And so this is a great, I highly encourage you.
I think your slides got stuck.
Okay.
Hit the full screen and we'll just make it small.
Can you hear me?
It looks like that.
It looks okay here though, right?
No.
No, it doesn't say full screen? Okay.
I would stop sharing and
Stop sharing for a second?
And
Okay, thank you. And should I go back?
you gotta go back up to the green arrow.
Okay. Screen share. Okay, here. Share. Okay, we'll try this again.
Entire piece, yep.
Yeah, that's great. Let's just leave it like that.
Okay, okay. So Nautilus is a great new science channel outlet that I really encourage everyone to take a look at. I'd love your opinion. It compares itself to a combination of the New Yorker and Scientific American. Great storytelling around science, and they're very much interested in partnering with us. They have wonderful partners like the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, the Santa Fe Institute, the Max Planck Institutes out of Germany, and just like really quality partners. And so they've given us a whole series of pro bono ads where we featured alumni, and if anybody wants to volunteer for that, be my guest. And we're going to be talking to them about an issue that's focused on education, and if we play our cards right and the content is really good, we might be part of that issue. And there's also lots of opportunities to advertise in that.
I'm gonna try to exit you out of here.
Okay.
Because it's not
It's
advancing. But
We'll keep going. And the last thing, I just want to mention The Wire. This is a new outlet that really Anne-Marie and Joe have been behind. It's a way for us to get our content and present it in really exciting visual ways with video, slide presentations. It's kind of targeted towards the media. The media don't necessarily like plain old press release anymore. They want actual content. But we're hoping if we get some good content out there, that we'll get an audience that will start to follow us. So we just launched this one. So I'm going to stop screen sharing. I just wanted to share those kind of top things that were happening. Okay. Should I close this right here? That makes sense? Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. So here's the next question that you asked. How does Olin do user-oriented collaborative design to understand target audiences? Excellent question. Funny that you should ask. I've been asking to take that course for 3 years now, and they won't, for some reason, they will not allow the staff yet to take that course for the students. I think they want a staff team. They say it's too complicated, but I think we should take that course. But I do get a lot through osmosis, and we have adopted a lot of the user-oriented collaborative design techniques. For instance, personas are something that we use for the development of the website. We've used it for the development of this, I forgot to mention inbound marketing, but maybe I'll get there. We're using it for some inbound marketing efforts that we're doing, and there's one more application I'm forgetting, but the whole idea of personas has been very strong for us. Also, David Kelly was our speaker at our last commencement last year, and if you don't know him, he's the founder of IDEO and of sort of design thinking. And he said something that really stuck with me, which is walk into the room with a prototype, because you'll be way ahead of everyone else. So we've been prototyping our brochures. Rather than producing really expensive brochures, we're starting to play around with producing prototypes. We get a lot of feedback, and then we change the brochures, and then we might go to final after a while. So I think that may be kind of a design thinking or engineering perspective, but the idea of, sort of low cost failures before you make a big investment. And I just think marketing, we naturally listen to our customers. It's the way that we're wired, and if we don't listen, we're told anyway. So we have to do a lot of listening. And I guess the area I'm really interested in user-oriented collaborative design is in co-creating solutions. I've seen a lot of our students do some interesting techniques around co-creating solutions with actual users, and I'd like to learn more about that. So I think we've got a lot to learn. How are we doing time-wise? We're eating up here, huh?
8:30.
Okay, I'll just answer the next two quickly. You also asked, how do market failures at Olin? How do we market failures at Olin and share what isn't working? Well, this is kind of a joke. We don't do it very well. We're failing at that. Seriously, we do incorporate language in our site, and we can give some examples of that. And we've been trying to embed reporters into some of the teams, some of the student teams, in scope, and we're looking at that at scope right now, which requires a risk because you're actually going to see some of these teams not necessarily succeed, but we do believe that process of failure is very important to engineering, and it's a very important quality of Olin. So we welcome other ideas. If you have other ideas about how we might feature failing in a way that people feel comfortable with internally, that's part of the challenge here, is people need to feel internally comfortable about it, and then communicates in a positive way that, as human beings and professionals, this is how we refine our skills and learn and get better. We really would appreciate that.
Yeah, I think we do try. We try in the language I know in the prospectus, but it's not something that kind of shouts at you. It's sort of subtle. We think that's an important part of the learning process, but I think we could do a lot better job talking about it more openly.
Nice to have a case study even around that we could share. We have a great video with faculty talking about failures that maybe after this we'll share with you.
Sure.
You can see that. How have marketing goals changed? I really like that question. So in the beginning, well, at least when I first came here, we were very much focused on what our brand messaging is, and we still are focused on it. It's constantly changing. Not everybody agrees on what it is. And we're growing as an organization, so that will never go away, but I think we're a little less focused on that. We were also very focused on building our channels. So things like Ovations, now The Wire, the website, we're doing inbound marketing, which I can talk about if we have time. And I think now we're moving a little bit away from that and thinking more about content. We need really great content that we can get out in, Facebook and Google, etc. And so we're really trying to scour the place for great stories and repackaging things. I'll just give you a couple of examples of this, and this will actually bring up, we're now clients of HubSpot for those of you that travel in the automated marketing system world. And this is the idea of inbound marketing, that you put good content. Well, you have personas, you know what their interests are, and you develop content for their interest. And then you blog that out. You have an offer that you give to them. They provide information to you, and you slowly kind of build a profile of people who are naturally interested in these topics. So we're taking Rick Miller's white papers. If you've ever seen those white papers, they're 15 to 20 page. In a good scenario, they're 10 page white papers, and we're reformatting them into primers. So into 2 to 4 page papers, and we're going to offer those with a blog from Rick. That's an example. We have a group coming in for Olin Innovation Lab that's going to talk about cybersecurity, and we're going to interview them and make those into short videos about, if you're a CEO, what's the top thing you need to know about keeping your company safe from cyber break-ins. So those are a couple of examples of the types of content, but Alumni, any of their stories that are great stories about their transformation at Olin, we want to hear about. Just one other comment. There's, for us, been some hiccups in our plans because Mary Kay McFadden, who was our Vice President of Development, Family, and Alumni Affairs, was here for a year, and for reasons related to her family, went back to her alma mater, University of Idaho. And so that's caused for us some stagnation. And now we have new leadership, which is terrific. I mean, Charlie was great to work with, but Emily's also going to be great to work with. But that means that we've kind of got to change horses too. So we've been steady, but things have been changing around us that we have to really change to meet their needs. So here's the last question.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. You do that last one and then bring something.
Okay, here's the last question. How can we as alumni stay up to date on current messaging at Olin, and how can we get involved? Okay, well, of course, there are the traditional channels. I'm going to put a plug in for Facebook, Twitter. There's the Wire, the one I just mentioned, webinars that we're having, visits, and obviously Olincoln Ovations. There may be other ideas that you have, so we always want to hear about those. And then what can you do? Just talk about Olin wherever you go. If you get interviewed by the media, mention Olin. We really appreciate that when that happens. So evangelize for us if you're inclined to do that. And whenever you're in a public situation and you have a moment to really talk about the revolution in engineering education and the role that Olin plays, and you're part of that, I think that really helps us. I'll just give you a very funny example. Slater Victoroff, I don't know if you know him, but he started Indico, one of the startups, and he, I guess, technically has not finished yet at Olin. But he was out speaking at an economy conference, and he said, Olin was the college that I went the longest to. So anyway, and he meant that as a compliment, because he was not the kind of guy who would stay in college. He had, so many ideas that he wanted to implement. So anyway, those are the ways that I can think of you helping us. So I'll end right there, and we'll see if there's any questions.
Great. So I'll bring in one question we got from Kevin in the Slack channel earlier. You mentioned we have a lot more media mentions this year than we've had last year. How do we find the media engagement and distribution to be? Like, are all of these mentions not bought, or is it sort of spread across a larger number of projects, or are there a smaller number that are really high impact, and that's what's driving most of that?
A lot of robotics, definitely. Snotbot, the drone. It's just kind of captured the media's interest right now. So that's always good for us. Alan Downey, in his class on visual representation, he's done some amazing, studies that are very, very much pegged on news items. So things like, who's going to be the first to break the 4-minute marathon. What are some of the logistics about Tinder, and how does that work? Do women get more offers than men on Tinder? And religiosity and why that's declined in the next generation, or not why it's declined, but the fact that it has declined in the next generation, the correlation to access to the internet. So his stuff is really interesting and popular. Then we look for placements around how we're different and innovation, the innovation lab of Olin and the revolution in engineering education and how we're changing it. So we get a fair amount of coverage around that. Rick just travels all over the world, and he tends to just garner a lot of interest. He had an intensive interview with Tom Friedman in the New York Times. So can you guys think of anything? Is that a fair?
I was thinking Sarah Hendren too. Is adding a really
Sarah Hendren. Many of you probably, because Sarah came last year, but she's doing really interesting work on, she calls it investigating normal. So people that are living with handicaps or physical disabilities, and really what does that mean? Are we all on some spectrum of having our own strengths and, I guess, weaknesses? And so I'm not describing her work well, but for instance, she's the person who redid the handicap decal to be more active and more positive, a more positive reflection of that. And she's got her class is doing like amazing work, doing things like helping a person that was born with a congenital defect, so he only has one arm, to get a device to climb to do rock climbing. So he doesn't want a fully functioning, $6 million arm. He just wants an attachment to climb this wall because he's perfectly comfortable with his arm. He's lived with it all his life. So it's just, listening, user-oriented collaborative design, listening to your customers and responding to what their needs are, what their perceptions of their needs are.
I think like just a shorter answer is that we do see maybe not perfectly even distribution of how the news coverage that we're getting, it kind of ebbs and flows, and we don't get as many just Olin stories out there anymore. But when we do, they do have a big impact. It's just that these other things go more viral. So
great. I'm going to ask another question from the Slack channel. You mentioned a bunch of different channels that Olin uses to reach people: Ovations, The Wire, our other press releases. What's your thinking in terms of the different channels and why we have so many, and the role that each channel plays?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Sometimes I ask that myself too, because I think there's crossover, and I don't want to distract. I don't want one channel to distract from another, but let me see if I can do this. The website is, really about applicants coming in, admissions applicants coming in, and people anybody just generally visiting Olin and getting sense of what Olin is. Because it could be educators, it could be donors, a lot of applicants, it could be media. And so that's doing heavy lifting in a lot of different regards. There's some news that flips in that pretty constantly, but we can't change it every day. I think The Wire is meant to be a news channel where news is breaking, and and that's more geared again to media and to people who want to stay in touch with what breaking news is at Olin. And we may market individual stories from The Wire to different audiences depending on who's interested in that. And I'm trying to think of an example of that. But for instance, robotics. Maybe that we would market that to people that we know who are in the robotics community, who are interested in robotics, as well as reporters who cover robotics. Whereas a Sarah Henman story, we market to people in healthcare. So we're going to pick different people depending on the story for that. Inbound marketing is very much targeted towards potential donors, but quite frankly, whenever we have content that we think is interesting, we'll put it out there and see who responds to that. So we're going to do the cybersecurity thing. We may get CTO, Chief Technology Officer, and Chief Information Officers around that. And Ovations is geared to people who really know Olin, who have a relationship with Olin, who don't want a daily update, but once a month want to know what the big things are that are happening. So that goes to our President's Council, to our board, and about 4,000 people altogether that we've developed relationships with. Have I missed anything?
Well, links are internally focused for the most part, either just to alumni, to parents, or the one that we do for the on-campus community. And then, with social media, I think we have been careful not to jump in to everything. Like, we're not on Pinterest. We're, not on Snapchat. I don't know, there's so many options, but I think that the audiences there differ a lot too. I think we hit a lot of parents with Facebook, a lot of parents, and hopefully a lot of you, and more of you on Twitter, but we don't get the younger generation on Twitter now, so I don't see that as hitting prospective students as much.
And I also think of Twitter being more driving news too, more media driven.
Definitely media, definitely people that come for collaboratory sessions tend to start following us on Twitter. People that are interested in specific faculty members, I think, follow us on Twitter. So it's a little more influencers is kind of how I think of Twitter. And then Instagram is where we get all the really young ones.
Yeah, Instagram is all prospective students, people that come that are younger, that are interested. They come for camps over the summer and they start following us on Instagram. So it's more geared towards the younger people, but there's also a lot of alumni on there too, because it's the new social media viral thing.
Great. One question someone asked was, what are the best ways that alumni or students can pass to you stories that might be interesting stories that you guys might want to run with?
Wait to hear more on that very soon. As you know, Greg, we've been working sort of with IT and a few different departments and people to try to come up with a good solution for this, and we are very close. So we will be sure to get the word out via all of our channels on how the best way to share stories with us. But if all else fails, you can always email any of us.
Yeah, any of us. I mean, we work very closely together. There's really only 5 of us, and we meet weekly, and it's a little bit like a newsroom. We're going through what's going on, what's happening, who's doing what. And we try to keep up with it all. I mean, for a small place, there's a lot going on here. So we can't always keep up with it all. But there's nothing that pleases us more than someone either writing to us or calling to us and telling us what's going on in their lives.
Cool. Sorry, I'm muting because I'll have to do this. One question also asked was, Mike Maloney is an awesome photographer for Olin, but he's not available to be at all events. How have you thought about hiring other professional photographers to help document more things?
In fact, we've kind of changed our relationship around with Mike. Mike did a lot of volunteer work for us. I mean, I think we had a few times sort of convinced him to be paid over the years. He just, obviously is committed to the students here, the alumni, and he loves it here. It's his family. But he can't really afford to do that and all the time he spent. So we started hiring, and he knows about this, new freelance photographers to come in, and we're developing our list of photographers, and they're doing some great work here. So like Alex Budnitz is taking some shots, Mark Osto, who's the other new woman?
Lise Jones.
Lise Jones. So really talented people. So that's what we're doing, and we're trying to run. We end up footing the bill for a lot of these things. So when people have requests, we're asking them to run through us, because sometimes people just want pictures to document the event for themselves, and we can't afford necessarily to pay for that. But if it's something that we're going to use in one of our outlets, or we're going to pitch to the media, or it needs to be documented for archival reasons, then we will pay for that. We have student interns.
Yeah, with some students too.
Yeah. And then, Joe does, we all do some photography. You don't want me taking your picture, but Sarah, you might want, maybe Joe. I don't know about Alyson, how many pictures she takes, but so we'll all whip out the camera when we have to, because there's nothing. And by the way, for those of you that have a chance to meet Jeff Goldenson down at library, which I know, Greg, you did, I mean, he's an amazing photographer and videographer too. So we've got increasing resources here. Yeah.
And one follow-up question Kevin Tostado asked in particular, what about video and not just photography?
Yeah, it's the same. So, Joe Hunter is a videographer and a documentarian, but, there's not enough Joe to go around. And it depends what we need it for. I think, Greg, you and some others really like the video that a group called White Rhino and Grain did for us. They're very high-end for us, not necessarily for Pepsi or Coke, but for us, they were very high-end. So we use people like that, and then we're trying to build a cadre of other videographers that are less expensive. And if you know, and Kevin's great too. I don't know if he's on this coast right now or where he is, but he's done some work too for us. So we're always looking. And by the way, I called Emerson not too long ago to try to see if we can get some Emerson students, because they have a very talented videography program. So far, it hasn't panned out. I think we're still on the hunt for some affordable videographers who can come here in a drop of a pen and show up. But yeah, the more we are.
Great. And one last question, sort of two-part question. One, how did you choose the name The Wire for the new media outlet? And what's the best way for alumni or other people to stay up to date? Like, where will those things be shared for people to see them?
Yep. So The Wire is on the front page of the website. It's up on the left-hand corner, if I'm thinking about this correctly. And there's a RS drop down.
It's on the top left-hand corner. It's also down at the very bottom fold where Awesome Projects used to be.
Right there. So it's easily findable there. And then there's an RSS feed there too for updates. So, and why did we pick The Wire? I tell you this, it was not scientific. I think that Anne-Marie, there were a lot of suggestions came in.
Yeah.
And I think because it was kind of Anne-Marie's project and Joe's project, I just said, whatever you think works. And I think we like The Wire for the double entendre of the kind of engineering, The Wire, the wire, the big wire. If you go search on Wire, it doesn't say Olin, you're going to end up at the program that's shot in Baltimore, not at Olin. And I don't know, the idea of electricity going through the wire and kind of being hot.
And news travels.
And news travels the wire. yeah, triple entendre, I guess, or whatever the right expression is. So that's where that came from. But sometimes I always appreciate our very creative alumni having suggestions too around those things. Like, by the way, we're going to be redoing the Phoenix, our logo, hopefully this semester. We'll still have a Phoenix, that's not changing, but we need a new image. So I welcome any drawings, renditions, or suggestions around that.
Great, and I think we're running about up on time, so I'll let you guys give a brief wrap, and then we'll conclude things.
Well, I just really, Greg and Chris, appreciate this opportunity to talk to the alumni. I'm always open, as is Alyson, and as Sarah and Joe and Anne Marie. And we want to hear from you. You have so much to bring to us, and we have a lot to learn from you, particularly around social media and technology. So we see this as a collaborative process. I think there's probably more that we want to do to improve. I know there's more that we want to do to improve our communications with you. We're starting to get a little more engaged with development around thinking about those kinds of things. And by the way, congratulations to the group for the merit-based scholarship fund that you put together. That was just amazing and just shows the power of the group. So, you know, so just thank you for this opportunity to speak with you, and really keep the questions and the ideas coming. And we appreciate it. I don't know if there's anything else you want to say?
I don't think so.
Great. That's it.
Great. Well, thank you guys, and thanks for the up to 27 simultaneous viewers that we had tonight. I think that's all we're going to do tonight. If people want to leave feedback about how they enjoyed this session, we're going to try to do more of these going forward. So feel free to leave a comment on the event on Facebook, or email me or anyone. I'll be sure to share all the email addresses if anyone wants to get in touch with our awesome marketing team. But otherwise, thanks everyone for tuning in. Have a great night, everybody.